Now that we have our HDRI dome in our scene, we can now start to refine some of the materials. Let's go ahead and continue on adding materials by adding some chrome pieces. So we want some chrome accents here. Nothing too major, nothing extravagant, just some of these trim pieces maybe in chrome. And the chrome is going to be defined mainly by its reflection, its reflectivity. So to create a chrome shader, one of the shaders that we're able to use is a metal ray material. And so let's go ahead and open that materials up, and let's open that DGS material. And this DGS stands for diffuse, glossy, and specular. And those are three of the options that we have available. So this is what we can use for our chrome. Now, as far as how to assign, you can see that I've taken my models and dialed that smoothness down to 0. If you remember when we converted this to a smooth mesh preview to polygons, put a smooth node on our model. And we want to dial that down simply so that we can access our faces. So, for instance, let's say I want to assign our chrome to this trim piece right in here. Well, I can simply access these faces, go ahead and grow the selection. Because these are already assigned the car paint shader, these particular faces I can now right click and say assign DGS to selection, and that will put a chrome shader just on those particular faces. So you might want to put it on some accent pieces such as that. You also might want to add the chrome to things like the trim around these insets, not only on the center, but where these wings kind of intersect with the fender. Okay, so I would go ahead and select these faces all the way around and all the way down here, there and there. And in this case, we'll be able to again grow our selection. And I'm going to shrink it just a little bit so I don't get that interior. And then again, we'll go ahead and assign DGS material to that. Okay, so you can go through and assign the material to specific pieces, specific faces. You can also simply grab an object and assign that as well. To also assign the little rims there with that DGS material. Now on the lights, go ahead and hide that. You might want to go ahead and assign it to things like this bezel here, this rim around the edge, the rim up here. You might want to assign it to something like this, so I'll go ahead and add that with the idea that we'll then add another material to the inside of those pieces. Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other pieces. Now up here we've added the car paint to the end here with the idea that this could possibly, come out of this hole right here. So let's go ahead and add the chrome to these faces on the inside. So we'll go ahead and go back to the hypershade and assign that material. Okay, so just kind of pick and choose a few different places for accents. I would put the chrome on pieces like this trim around here. Also maybe on the inside here, we've got some trim. Pieces around the headlights would be a good place for the chrome. Okay. Now you might want to put the chrome on the trim around the axis panel, or you could also do the car paint shader itself. I'll probably just add the car paint shader to that. All right, I'm not going to put chrome on the wheels. We've already added that that car paint shader that's a red color to that. But I do want to try it out at least on the engine. So I think we're going to go a different way, but let's see what this looks like with the chrome on there. So I'll go ahead and add that DGS material. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and bump this back up so that when we render, it'll look a little bit better. And let's turn on our HDRI dome, and let's do a quick render and see what that looks like. And I'll just pause real quickly while we renders up. And here we go. You can see that that has a nice look to it. It's very reflective, and if that's what you want to go for, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to go for a little bit different look, kind of a rougher look, and we can use a blend for that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this image in, and let's experiment a little with our blend. So go ahead and create a blend shader, blend material rather, and go ahead and dial the color up to something a little bit wider. Take the eccentricity up to maybe 0.6. Take our specular color down a bit. Let's bump the reflectivity up to maybe 0.6 or so. And let's go ahead and apply this as it is. So I'll go ahead and assign that material. And now let's do another render, and let's pause once more. So that rendered much quicker, and we still get some reflectivity in here, but what I want to go for is something that's a little bit rougher, and so the blurry reflections are going to enable us to get that sort of a look. So I'll go ahead and drop that in. You can see the difference there. So let's go ahead and go into our blend, and down here in our mental ray tab you'll find some options for reflection blur, and this value here is going to be the angle in degrees of difference between the ideal totally reflective surface and sort of a just diffuse. So if I put something like 10 or 12, it's kind of a low value. So let's go ahead and render that. I'm going to go ahead and dial down this color just a little. Okay, and we'll go ahead and re-render. And once again, pause. Alright, so that's what we get with the default. You can see it's pretty rough in there. So let's go ahead and bump up some of the values that we have available. So I'm going to go into our blend, down to our reflection blur, and let's bump up the rays, use 6 rays, and bump up the reflection blur limit. And then we'll go ahead and do another render and pause once again. And here we are with those settings. And what I like about this is you can see the reflection there, but it's kind of rough and it gives the impression of having all those little grooves from the machined metal. And that's sort of the look I want to go for. If you want to go for a different look, feel free to do that, but you can achieve this sort of a look with a blend instead of using the metal ray DGS material for the chrome. Okay? So between this lesson and next, I'm just going to go through and apply that chrome material to the different pieces. So I have trim pieces here. I have the trim around here, and that's just simply a matter of selecting those faces and assigning it to that DGS material. I have the pieces in the grill, possibly the interior trim pieces here, some pieces on the headlights that I want to assign, and I would probably take that blend that we created, unless you're using the DGS, but whatever material you have for the engine, I'm going to go ahead and assign for the vents and also for the faces that are not this red color on this piece. Okay? So we'll just go and assign those materials. So we'll have all the chrome assigned in the next lesson, and we will have the engine metal assigned also. Okay, so in the next lesson we're going to come in and look at how we can create some of the other materials like the glowing panels on the wheels and also the lights, adding some incandescence before we move on to laying out UVs for particular objects so that we can then add texture maps. So I will see you in the next lesson.